Welcome to another episode of Very Interesting with me, Chris Mejia. Thank you so much for listening. I'm here with another pre-recorded intro since we recorded this earlier in the year. I'm so excited for y'all to hear this. Yet another amazing guest on this podcast. Dear friend and also one of the most talented people I know, Alyssa Yeoman, a multi-hyphenate creative. She does it all. Comedian, writer, director, podcaster, producer, just overall extraordinaire. I have Alyssa on the podcast to talk about what it's like being a multi-hyphenate creative and not allowing the world to put you in a box and allowing yourself to explore different lanes and do different things and not feel the pressure to stick to one thing. I'm so excited for y'all to hear this conversation. I find it very inspirational, the talk that we have. If you like Alyssa, which you definitely will, you should follow Alyssa at Alyssa Yo on Instagram and Twitter, at AlyssaYeoman.mp4 on TikTok. Also, you should 1000% listen to the podcast that Alyssa is a co-host of, Is This Normal podcast, that she hosts with local comedian Aaron Engel, where essentially they just respond to people's quirks and queries of things that they do and dissecting on whether it is normal, if it's special, or somewhere in between. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Is This Normal Pod, and also you can listen to the podcast on all platforms that podcasts are available. Seriously, once again, thank you so much for all of the support. So much work has gone into this pod. It's been such a passion project of mine. And for all of you who have given thumbs up, subscribes, follows, ratings, comments, and everyone who's like sent me messages saying how much they've enjoyed it, it's truly meant the world. Thank you so much. And all of that effort that you put in really helps this podcast get discovered by new people, and I seriously greatly appreciate it. So thank you for your support, and thank you for the continued support. But without further ado, let's get to it with another episode of Very Interesting. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Very Interesting with Chris Mejia. It's your boy, Chris Mejia. And today's episode, I have such a special guest. Not only just a dear homie in my life, but also such a funny fucking person, an incredibly talented person. This next guest is not only a comedian, but a producer, director, writer, podcaster, co-host of the Is This Normal podcast and live show. Producer and host of the Puff Puff Laugh comedy show. Also a producer of the Diverse Group of Friends online sketch group. And has been seen in the 10,000 Laughs Comedy Festival, Seattle International Comedy Competition, Bumper Shoot. There's so many credits. Honestly, the entire podcast could just be listening that. And I'd rather just get to talking to this amazing person. Please get a lot of love to the amazing, the hilarious Alyssa Yeoman, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on.
That's a strong start. We're like, this is filmed in front of a live studio audience, everybody.
Now that you say that, I should probably I'll add in post a studio audience.
Please do. Laugh tracks as well.
Yeah, but actually, I love that. Actually, that's it. Oh, you just created a problem.
It'll be great.
Thank you so much for being on the pod. I definitely wanted to have you on for several reasons. One, so as mentioning in your introduction, you're not just a stand-up. You've done so many things creatively that to me I've always found as an inspiration, because I feel like we often get so siloed into like, I'm this thing, I'm gonna do this thing. Yeah. And then now, because of the ages of algorithms and shit, we even get more pushed into a box. Yeah. And I feel like you've, at least from the outside looking in, you've always kind of been like, there's some shit I want to do, I'm gonna go do it. And I respect that. I hella respect that. I was wondering, is that on purpose, or have you just naturally kind of just ran, like, has it just not even accidental, but just been like, I just feel like doing this thing? You weren't actually setting out to be this multi-layered creative.
Yeah. So, I think I don't think it's been on accident. So I've always been interested in like a variety of arts for sure. And I would say it started with like writing, and then when I started doing stand-up, I obviously like fell in love with the craft of stand-up itself, but I kind of realized, oh, comedy is kind of this entry point to like everything I want to try. And I don't really like being pigeonholed. I think that's another thing. And if I'm like curious about something, like I'm gonna try it out. I've never been like, I mean, even when it comes to like 9-to-5 jobs, I've never like felt tied down. I'm like, well, if this is like, oh, I think I want to pursue this, or like this isn't fitting me anymore. So I've always tried to give myself, even though sometimes I used to be hard on myself for not being that type of person who's like one track minded.
Right.
Like, I think it is tough. Luckily now there's a lot of like multi-hyphenate people, and even being like, I feel like even the term, let's just say like a creator right now, like very popular. A lot of people are trying to do it, but you're doing literally everything from your like marketing to your editing to your PR to your, you know, like, and I think that it just kind of opened me up to being like, I want to try all this, and I shouldn't be afraid to.
Right.
And then it really got confirmed. This is kind of random, but like every year around my birthday, I usually try to do like an astrology reading. And one year I did a career one, and someone kind of did my reading and was like, you're someone who's going to try a lot of things, and you're like meant to do a lot of things. Because you're a dreamy person. I am a very like dreamy person and stuff like that. And at first I was like, oh fuck, that sucks. That means like, I was like, this is just code for like being poor the rest of my life.
It's like, cool, I just had a reader tell me I have occupational commitment issues.
Yeah, exactly. But then I was like, you know, I honestly would rather know everything. I do have like an ultimate goal in life of being a director and also having my own production company, which I discovered through doing comedy, because through that I started doing other projects that like led me to that.
Right.
Because I feel like it kind of goes along with a lot of the other skills that I have. And yeah, I do have that ultimate goal, but I do think like you need to know how, I've always been a believer, and you need to know how like everything works, at least to a little bit of an extent. Not that I have to be an expert at everything, but like if you're bringing someone else onto your team or whatever, like ultimately I really just like love collaborating with people, as you know, like that's one of my favorite things. And if I'm going to bring in someone who I'm like, oh, if you could do like this for me, having some knowledge of like what they do will help you better communicate with them. And also like, I don't know, I just like love learning, and I'm just very curious about a lot of things. So it's like, I want to know how everything works, from like behind the camera to like being on stage to like writing a script, writing a sketch. Like, you know, like I love taking classes regularly. Like, I don't know, I just feel like everything kind of helps to develop, you know, your artistry.
Right.
And I don't know, I think every art like goes through phases and shifts, and I think there's always room to like recreate or reinvigorate something by like adding something in that you found from like another art, you know, like, I don't know. I think even the artists that like inspire me or like the most are like ones that are kind of pushing the genre of what they do, or I don't know, doing something that like, you're like, oh, this person is a rapper, but they also created this incredible documentary or whatever, right? Like, I'm like, that's awesome, you know, because you just gotta, I don't know, it's never been on accident. I do like come up with an idea, or like I want to try something, and then I do spend a lot of time thinking on something before I actually pull the trigger. So I don't feel like a lot of things are like accidental per se. Right. It's just like
you definitely like they're calculated decisions.
Yeah.
But it is kind of like it wasn't that you were on purpose in the sense of like, I'm going to do this first and then this and then this. It was kind of, you stumbled onto them, but as you decided to pull the trigger, you thought about it and you calculated on it, on like, do I actually want to do this? Do I want to carry through? Because at least to me, you've never been someone who like, you're like, I'm gonna do this thing, and then it never actually, at least whether it was released in the world or not, like it got to the completion, like it got to the finish line.
Very true. Yeah, because I do have some things that I tried out, and I like have, like when I was gonna do that In Deep thing, we did this interview together, and I had like this whole plan, and I was cooking it up, and I was like, okay, like let's do this, and I did a couple episodes, And then I was like, oh, this isn't like giving what I want. So I also just try not to be like too precious.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. And if I like come back to that idea, that'll be great. And I have this like basis for it or whatever. But like, I was like, oh, this isn't the time, or this isn't like my vision for it. And I will wait until I can have like my vision come through.
Right.
Which I think sometimes feels contradictory to stand up as an art form.
Right.
Because it's like go, new, like keep going, grind, you know.
Right.
Like, but I'm like, I don't know, all these other artists get a lot of leeway to like, I don't know, take a few years to create an album or, you know, do this or that. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, I'm not going to wait for someone to give me permission to do that. I'm just going to do it because like who fucking cares at the end of the day?
Yeah.
You know? So
it is frustrating where it feels like stand-up is one of the few art forms in the realm of entertainment where we're not allowed that space to like so many musicians are like, you literally don't even know if they're alive.
It's truly.
Until they tweet the song link. And even then they don't even like, I mean, obviously these are the big artists, but it's like, they just like, they appear out of nowhere, put out their stuff, and then they're allowed the time to be like, go work on your thing.
Yeah.
Whereas stand-up very is much like, okay, it's been 2 months. Do you have a new bit? Like, do you have a new 5, 10, whatever? But actually, to go back to when you were talking about when you got the reading done and they were like, you're always going to be changing careers. I actually would say that, like, I feel like it's such an old prehistoric mindset that's been bestowed on all of us from previous generations of when you're old enough, you find the career you want to do and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much freedom in viewing it more as like, there's going to be things in my life for seasons.
Right.
Because I think very much like for myself, stand-up has always been, I love stand-up. I want to get as good as stand-up as I can. Yeah. But similar to you, I've always felt stand-up was going to be that thing I was going to do that I was going to get good enough at to then do whatever it is I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're often around, like a lot of comics have that mindset of, I have to grind at this one thing until I'm the best of the best. And I was wondering, how do you allow yourself to keep that freedom and feeling free to just dip into the other things that you express that you're interested in and not feel weighed down by the pressure to just grind out so hard at the stand-up thing?
That's a great question. I don't think I'm always good at like, I don't know. I don't think I'm always good at not feeling that pressure. I think, I don't know. It's hard. I feel like, you know, you have to be really in tune with yourself. I mean, as of like right now, it was really getting to the point for me, like, you know, I'm not on social media right now, which there have been moments even in like not being on social media in this like little bit of time where I've been like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to have 0 followers. And when I come back, and I don't have a lot of followers, like it does, you know, like whatever. I have like barely any followers. Cause it's like, I don't like doing social media like that necessarily. Like
it used to be fun.
It used to be fun.
It used to be fun where we posted stuff because we wanted to.
Yes. And I also do social media work in a 9-to-5 capacity. So that really also kind of takes away from it a little bit for me. I like doing it, you know, in the 9-to-5 capacity. It's like different. You have resources for it, but like it is hard for me sometimes to like, I don't know. I struggle. Something I've been trying to be better about this year, like my whole like goal for this year is like inner peace, to be like comfortable with like how I work, because I did used to judge myself a lot for my process and it being different. But I think the way I kind of step back from that pressure is like, I don't know, I feel like I have a good community of people around me. I think that's a huge part of it to ground me. And at the end of the day, I kind of always like, I don't know, I invest in like knowing myself best and like trusting myself and being like, I can't do this right now. Like social media was getting me down to the point where I was like, am I just gonna I don't know, do sets and like clip them up for the rest of my life and post 7 times a week and try to appease the algorithm, which is like, you know, me and my friend were talking about it. Another great comedian, Natalie Holt, and they were shout out making the comparison that it's like social media is like gambling. You know what I mean? Like we're putting this out there, we're hoping it makes it big. Where a lot of people aren't getting paid for it. The app that you're putting it on is getting paid. It's like low key a scam, but it's now like also required for part of your promotional purposes.
Right. It's exploitation.
It's exactly.
These apps are trying to keep people
on the app.
So they can spend ad dollars.
Yes.
And they need to do that by having content, but they're not content producers. Exactly. So they're requiring us to constantly to keep them in. And it's like, I feel very conflicted about how now, because of social media, anyone can make it. Because it's like, yes, we don't have these gatekeepers anymore that are determining who gets to go up or not, it's usually white men who they chose. Now, because of social media, you could be the most niche person in the world and find your audience, which is amazing. But then the offset of that is that, one, because anyone can make it. Yeah. So sometimes it is hard to like see someone who you're like, they're not good.
Yeah.
But they're having an audience. But then also it's putting all this pressure of like, this next reel has to be the one that like goes viral and all of that. And then you put all of this time to edit it, put it out, and it doesn't get a lot of views. And then you take it so personally of like, I guess I'm not funny and people don't want what I have to offer, when that's very much not true. There's this mystery algorithm that no one knows.
Right.
And you can be doing everything that the algorithm they tell you to do, and it won't pop off. It's very like, social media just used to be like this cool thing where I get to tell jokes in a way that I can't on stage.
Yeah.
And then now it's added all this pressure. Taking a break from social media, do you feel like it's going to get to the point where you're like, I don't know if I can go back?
Oh my God. Well, first, before I answer that, one, I think I just want to talk about like the term even making it.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? Because I think a lot of people aren't defining it anymore by like, the beautiful thing I love about doing comedy is honestly, I was like, you create your own milestones, right? Like you decide what making it is, like. But now it's like, is making it making it comedy, having 100K followers? It's like, I don't know. Like, is that making it in comedy? Because you can still show up and have a shit hour at the club and everybody in that audience hates you because all they've seen is these like clips of you, and it is not a cohesive like set, or you're not actually like, you don't have that much material because you've only been doing comedy like not that long, right? Like it's really warping how we see ourselves in our minds, and I do think that's terrible. Have I had the moment where I don't want to go back to social media? Absolutely. Several times. Like during this time I also did like, you know, I did this meditation retreat where I was like in silence for like 10 days and didn't have access to my phone and the internet, and I was literally like, I'm about to be a monk.
I've heard of those.
Yeah.
Where isn't it like you're just like in a room?
You're not just in a room, but yeah, that you are in rooms at various times.
It's not a room. There's multiple ones.
There's multiple rooms you can go to, but yeah.
What are you doing while
you're meditating a lot?
See, that's my ADHD brain would go to not have any sort of stimulation. That sounds so like I'm not like dissonant, like no shade.
Yeah.
My brain is like, I could never.
Well, as someone who also has ADHD.
Okay, well, wait a minute.
You heard it here.
I'll get my shit together. Okay,
ADHD
all right.
Versus ADHD diagnosis. Here we are in the diagnosis Olympics. No, I mean,
sorry, I'm more functioning as a neurodivergent than you.
No, I'm not. I had a lot of conversations in my head with myself. You'll be surprised how much you can keep yourself entertained, honestly. And you'll be surprised. I mean, I do think that aspect definitely came in because there was like definitely some meditations where I was like doing it and like thinking about something else completely for like the whole time. Like literally I had one meditation specifically that I think about during that time where I was like thinking about like different types of pastas I wanted to eat when I like left for like an hour, and I was like, this is like, I think it like shined a light on how distracted I get in a lot of ways.
Top
too.
three.
Yeah.
What are the top three?
Oh no, we're not getting that's a different podcast.
Okay, all right. We'll have you back.
Very interesting pastas. The spinoff. But I say all that. I brought that up because like I think taking that time away really made me realize how much of what we're doing online is honestly just consuming more than necessarily contributing. Yeah. And you also get rewarded on social media for engaging with the app more, I feel like, than people realize. Yeah. So yeah, you post and you don't look at it for a day, but then you come back, you go through every comment, you're like liking, you have to respond, then you like, you know, follow up, you reboost it, you know, like maybe, you know, it's like, and then it's like you get rewarded for like being on it more. You're posting 7 times a week and they're like, oh my gosh, this person's posting 7 times a week. Let's like throw them a little bit or like, you know, give them a little taste of this, pump it, and then the next, you know, and then you hit a down slope and you're like, what's happening? And it's like, oh, they don't care anymore. Right. Because you're already in it and doing this.
It's almost from an engagement standpoint, it's pay to win.
Exactly.
Instead of just play to play or just like free to play.
Yeah. And the price you're paying, I mean, in my opinion, is like your mental health.
Right.
You know, but yeah. And I mean, not everybody has that relationship with social media, but I just know for me, it's like, yeah, I'm like, it's so curated. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like the most artful place. I love the internet though. I mean, I do love the internet. I love a lot of stuff that comes out of there. I think it's super funny, and you know, like I am a part of that culture and I was raised on it, but I do think it's like changed. It's hard to find maybe some authenticity on there. Yeah. You have to really kind of scrape through, but
I mean, it's very much where it's like, it's something that like, I feel like for a lot of creatives, especially comics, a lot of people end up either quitting or just not realizing how good they are because we're constantly comparing ourselves against each other. And then we're like, well, so-and-so got this thing. What am I doing? And it's like, well, one, we're only posting, like everyone's page is a curated version of their life. Yeah. It's like the same thing with like couples who look so perfect. It's like, yeah, they're not posting their fights. Yeah. People aren't posting when they're like having breakdowns and crying, which actually there are people who post videos of them crying, and I'm like, I always feel like those are a little weird. Or just the idea of like, oh, I'm about to cry, let me set up a camera so I can record myself.
That's the problem, right? Is like sometimes that stuff is getting posted and it's completely inauthentic now.
Right.
And then you're like, sometimes it's like to like further, it's like, I don't know. It's a confusing time, I think. Yeah. In comparison, it's the thief of joy, as that quote, you know, goes. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's stuff I've seen online. I'm like, oh, you, like, to get caught like this, you had to like set up a camera before this happened at some point.
What was that dude who like did that with Target? He was like just doing a regular day, and he like filmed himself like getting ready, out of bed, getting ready, and then going to Target. And he like set up the tripod of showing him parking his car, getting out of his car, and then it's things like that. I mean, it works. Like it blew up, and now like
people love that shit.
Right.
Yeah. And maybe I'll do videos like that when I have like a social media person filming me, but I'm just never going to be the
You're not going to have the tripod?
No, I'm not. Like, that's so much. I can't even, that would take so much effort on my part that I do not have the brain capacity for. So, yeah, but.
The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was, so specifically years ago, you, along with 2 other Seattle comedians, Monisa Brown and Natalie Holt, banded together to produce, write, and direct a 2-episode live production. 3. Oh, 3. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. A 3-episode production called Alyssa Explains It All, which was a sci-fi comedy talk show within a show.
Yeah. Hella meta.
And it was I only got to see the second one, the one about death.
Yeah, that was our worst one.
No, I saw the first two. It was that I brought my then girlfriend at the time. I was like, it's so funny, you're gonna love it. And it was like the most. It was like so.
Yeah, we didn't get really good. The death one was. Okay, I don't know what your question's about to be, but I do want to address this. Alyssa Explains It All is my idea. And then I basically, how I get a lot of my friends in general, I feel like I'm like, hey, do you want to either work with me on something? Or I'm like, hey, do you want to be my friend? And so I like kind of came up with this concept. It was pretty high level. And then I brought in Monisa and Natalie. And I did really feel like I had to create buy-in to like get people into it. And then I had a bunch of other friends in it as well. I feel like I've always been like very intuitive and like kind of like plugged in to like what's going on in life and like, you know, stuff like that. And that death one was just, you know, it was funny. I think though the timing sucked because we did it and it was like right after Trump got elected.
Yeah. And the vibes were not vibing.
It was about death. It was like a more somber. It was like a middle thing. So
it was
like,
still good. For the record, it was still good.
Yeah.
It was just like the first one was like very, very funny. And then I think because the second episode was about death, like Seattle doesn't know how to handle.
It was a darker humor.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. And then it was like, I think, you know, I learned a lesson there. I'd never done a play before. So, you know, there was that. That was my first experience ever writing a play, producing a play. And that like middle episode is like, you had to maybe be there for the first, and it was also moving us toward the end.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, you had to maybe have some context for the last and like move that forward. Like we didn't have like any sort of like, here's a recap,
right,
you know, of what you missed or something. So yeah, but I mean, I'm still proud of that work. And
I mean, you should be.
I had just started a job at that time. I still have, luckily still friends from that job. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you do comedy, you do this thing. And I was like, oh, come to this show, you know, like come and like all of my like new coworkers came to that thing about death. They're like, oh, it was like interesting. And I was like, you know, and that's, you know, I have a joke about that, but that's like basically code for bad with Seattle people. And I was like, I don't know. I've like people who got it.
Yeah.
And I'm for it. And I'm still proud of that because I was like, it, you know, it's subversive. I don't care. And it was like, I don't know. It was collectively what we were all feeling. Right. And if you don't want to confront that, that's not my fault. I feel like, I don't know.
But I mean, that's the thing where it's like, I feel like it's way more impressive to make something like that. Thanks. Because it's like you said, it was what y'all were feeling at the time.
Yeah.
You knew what you did with the first episode. And like, once again, I want to make it clear, like I still loved it and I still enjoyed it. It was a different vibe from the first episode, but it was still amazing.
Yeah.
And like, I still think it's very much creatively to take, I don't even want to say risk, but like just for the sake of not having a better word, taking the risk of like, we set this one tone for this one episode and now we're going a completely different tone. Like that takes a lot of creative courage to do that.
Thanks.
And like you said, like people who got it and people who didn't. And it's like at the end of the day, especially the more I progress in my like creator career, I fuck more with like, you know what? I'm just gonna, the people who fuck with what I want to do, that's who I want to please, rather than just like, let me just make this thing that's like for everybody. Yeah. Which is nothing wrong with wanting to make things that please everybody. Yeah. But I think
you can't.
Right.
Like you can't at the end of the day. Like I don't know, even being in the bodies that we are in, there are already people who do not like us.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So I mean, just on a very real level. So it's like, I don't know. I've kind of like, I think this has come with age. Like I have like officially, I'm like, I don't really care about like being understood.
Right.
If I am like those I'm understood by, like, yes, let's vibe, etc. Those I'm not, like, I don't, there's nothing.
Right.
I have no expectation. And
right.
I don't care, you know?
I love that of if we can kind of unpack that a little more of you don't care about being understood. I feel like for a lot of people, including myself, just so much of our life is wanting to be understood.
100%.
And wanting to be understood so much that you're willing to change who you are to be a version of yourself, whether it's a version of yourself that is or isn't really you, to then feel accepted and understood. So to have that kind of mentality of I don't care about being understood, how did you even get to that point?
Yeah, I think it's been like a lot of reflection. I invest a lot in like, you know, taking care of myself, therapy, like doing things like going silent for 10 days. Like I'm a very like reflective person. And yeah, I think it actually comes from basically a past of growing up feeling like a recovering people pleaser and also always living in that space of feeling lonely and misunderstood and really, I don't know, like being like, oh, I have to fix this about myself. And then I would basically try to do that thing where I'm like, okay, let me like change this about me, or like, I don't know, give up pieces of myself to like in this relationship or with this group of people to like fit in more and not feel that. But I found that it actually only amplified that feeling of being misunderstood and lonely because I then was not being myself. And then as soon as I kind of let that go, and started to internalize that more. And I feel like I honestly, like this year got to the point where I'm like, have seriously internalized it. It has been a long journey. And I obviously have moments where I'm like in and out of that, because you will always have moments where you're like, oh shit, am I this awkward person in the room, or I'm whatever. But yeah, I was just like, I don't know. I like the people I attract more when I do not care about those things than the people I attract when I do care about those things. Like all the people in my life who I was like trying to fit in with or like molding myself in a different way, like we're not friends anymore. Right. You know what I mean? Like we're not close. I faded out on them. They faded out on me. Like, cause it wasn't real. It wasn't like, it was a fake thing. Right. You know? So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it just, at some point you just have to be like, it is what it is. You know, I would rather have like 1,000 people who like really fuck with me than like a bunch of people who are like only like me for whatever, you know, me being fake. That's not that's not sustainable for me as a person. Right. So,
because I think it's very much like even like the artists and stuff that we are inspired by and look up to and want to not even like model ourselves after, but like they're the reason we are like, I want to be creative. We're people who are like, I'm going to be me. Yeah. Like, for example, the first person that comes to mind, or the two people actually that come to mind, are Issa Rae and Quincy Bronson, or Brunson with a U, not an A, who I feel like both have created these amazing things because they were just being fully themselves. Right. Even though those things may not have existed at the time that they've created those things. So I think, honestly, when I say dangerous, I don't mean dangerous in the sense to yourself, but more dangerous in the sense of, oh, this person's going to fuck shit up. Yeah. Is that mentality of, nah, I don't care what y'all's rubric is. Yeah. I don't care what y'all are doing. I'm going to make my shit. Yeah. Because I feel like the things that have always stood the test of time were always things that, whether they were understood when they came out or not, were things that like people were like, yo, what the fuck was, I have not seen something like that before.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, I think this can even go, I feel like one of the things we share is our love for music and liking the same music, but it's like, even if I think about like Tyler the Creator or like Tierra Whack or like, I don't know, there's just so many examples of people who are just like, okay, I'm going to do this. Right. And you just got to do it, because it's like, you will find the people. I do think that's one good thing about the internet is you are now, it's like you can get online, you'll see something, you're like, wow, I've thought this forever and I had no idea that there's other people out there that feel that way. So it's like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like, even if it is like 10 likes or whatever, like those 10 people who like fuck with it heavy, like that's valuable to me. Right. You know, so.
And even from like, just a last point, and then we got to wrap things up. Not even just from a for your creative endeavors or whatever, be yourself. I just feel like whether you're in a non-creative career or you're a creative pumping out some sort of art, I feel like you're gonna be at your best and your most potential when you no longer have the shackles of I'm trying to be what the world wants. Yeah. And you're finally like, I'm going to go and be me out there. Right. And if they don't like it, I don't give a fuck.
Right. I mean, let's even like look at Beyonce. I mean, obviously she's been an incredible artist for all these years, but like, I don't know, when we saw her Renaissance movie when she was like, I'm 40 now and I like don't give a fuck and I've never felt this like freedom before. Right. And I was like, now I'm going to the studio making this music that like I want to make. Like, that was an insane tour. Like, right. You know what I mean? Like, she's on this insane, like, uptick, you know? Right. Like, and a continual upward climb because it's like, she is like, oh, I am, like, this is about me now. This is about, like, what I want, my vision, and, like, pushing that forward. Like, I feel like there's so many lessons to be learned. I think, I think we just got to roll with it in that way. So right. Yeah.
Alyssa, I could talk to you for hours. Yeah. But we're almost out of time. If people like the thing, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm going to add in post clapping, audience clapping. If people like the things you say and the way you say it, okay. Can they? I guess I know you're taking a social media break right now.
You should follow me anyway. I say all that to say I want to come back to 1 million followers. So,
listen, I'm not doing social media anymore. Yeah. I'm done with it. Anyways, what's up, YouTube?
Hit subscribe.
I've given up on Instagram. I'm now on Tubi.
Yeah, exactly. You can buy my shit on Tubi.
Where can people follow? Can they follow you online? And if so, if people want to support you, what's the best way of doing so?
Yeah, so you can follow me online. I'm on all social media. I don't know if TikTok will be banned at the point that this comes out.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Yeah, I don't know. But at Alyssa Yeo, ALYSSAYEO on Instagram and Twitter, and Alyssa Yeoman.mp4 on TikTok. All that's easy to find. AlyssaYeoman.com.
I like that as a username. That's really good.
I thought it was kind of like a vintagey
name. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. My Alyssa Yeoman was taken by someone else, so that's how I got there.
We're gonna edit that out. It was actually because Alyssa already had that as an amazing idea. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. It wasn't because the name was already taken.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, so you can find me at any of those places. You know, you can email me, alyssa.yeoman, at gmail.com. I don't know why I gave that out, but you know, I'm like, you could call me.
You want to email?
No, I'm kidding. You want my fucking bank information? Yeah, but yeah, people can find me. And you know what? When I come back to social media, I'll be better than ever. I'm gonna be ready for it. So
those pasta recipes, they're gonna be banging. And then the last thing is we actually shout out to way back Stoop Kings, a previous podcast I did with Abraham Tedessa, another comedian. We did this on there, so you might remember this. Okay. But as a parting segment of I basically where I ask all my guests to basically be like, hi, my name is, and then you say your name, and I'm gonna leave you with this, and you basically whatever you want to say, whether it's like you ultimately want to hammer home a point that we talked about, or something we didn't get to talk about, or like homework you want to assign the listeners, or if you just want to be like, yo, in this beef, I'm on Kendrick's side. Like it could be whatever you want.
I'm always on Kendrick's side.
All you got to do is, hi, my name is blank, and then I'm gonna leave you with this, and then the floor is yours.
Okay. All right. Hi. My name is Alyssa, and I'm going to leave you with this. The best gift you can give yourself is knowing yourself and trusting your instincts.
There we go. Very profound. Everyone's gone profound, and I don't think anyone so far has been like, said something goofy.
Yeah, it's hard to go goofy after we've like had this like deep conversation. What I was gonna be like, wrap it up.
Yeah, find your true self. Anyways, I'm gonna leave you with this. Go squirt sometime.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave you with this. If you're interested in buying Bitcoin, hit me up. I got some. Like,
Alyssa, thank you so much for being on the pod. This was so amazing. We'll definitely have to have you back. And everyone listening in, thank you so much for listening to another episode. We got one more at stake, and then that's going to be season 1. Greatly appreciate you listening to all these episodes. I love you dearly. And do something out there this week that the sole purpose is to bring you joy and happiness. I love you very much. Have a good night.